Minsu Park stands frozen in the doorway of her brother's private penthouse lounge on Manhattan's Billionaire's Row, and her entire body goes rigid. The coffee she had been carrying slips from her fingers and crashes to the marble floor, dark liquid spreading like blood across the pristine white surface. But she does not look down. She cannot look anywhere except at the scene unfolding before her eyes. There, sitting on the Italian leather sofa, is her brother Dong-soo, a very powerful and influential man on the East Coast, the head of the Park family empire, the man who has not smiled genuinely since their mother's funeral 3 years ago. And he is laughing, actually laughing. His head is thrown back, his shoulders are shaking, and the sound coming from his chest is something Minsu has not heard in so long that she almost does not recognize it. But that is not what makes her blood freeze in her veins. Sitting next to him, close enough that their knees are almost touching, is a black woman Minsu has never seen before in her life. The woman's natural hair is styled in beautiful twists that frame her face perfectly. She wears a simple yellow sundress with no designer labels visible anywhere. No expensive jewelry adorns her neck or wrists. No perfectly manicured nails or professionally done makeup. She looks completely, utterly ordinary. And she is making Dong-soo laugh like Minsu has not seen since they were children. The woman turns slightly, still giggling at whatever joke she just told, and Minsu takes in every detail of her face. Warm brown skin that seems to glow in the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Full lips curved into a genuine smile. Eyes that sparkle with intelligence and humor. She is beautiful, Minsu realizes with a sinking feeling in her stomach. Not the manufactured beauty of the socialites and heiresses that Minsu has been trying to introduce to her brother for years. This is natural, effortless beauty. And it makes Minsu sick. She clears her throat loudly, deliberately interrupting the moment. The laughter stops immediately. Dong-soo's smile fades as he looks up and sees his sister standing in the doorway, her designer heels surrounded by spilled coffee, her face arranged into an expression of barely concealed disgust. The black woman turns around, and when she sees Minsu, her smile does not disappear. Instead, it somehow becomes warmer, more welcoming. She rises gracefully from the sofa and takes a step forward, her hand extended in greeting. "Oh, hello, you must be Minsu. Dong-soo has told me so much about you. It is so wonderful to finally meet you. I'm Margaret." Margaret. The name echoes in Minsu's head like an alarm bell. This woman knows her name. This woman has been discussing her with Dong-soo. This woman has apparently been around long enough for conversations about family to happen, and Minsu knew nothing about her until this very moment. Minsu does not take the extended hand. She stares at Margaret's fingers like they are contaminated with something contagious, then slowly, deliberately lifts her gaze to meet Margaret's eyes. The warmth in those brown eyes flickers slightly, but Margaret's smile holds steady. She is not easily intimidated, Minsu notes. That is going to be a problem. "Dong-soo," Minsu says, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. She speaks in Korean, deliberately excluding Margaret from the conversation. "We need to talk, privately, right now." Dong-soo's jaw tightens. He rises from the sofa slowly, and Minsu watches something flash in his eyes. Annoyance, maybe even anger. He has never looked at her like that before, not once in their entire lives. "Margaret," he says, deliberately speaking in English, "would you excuse us for a moment? My sister seems to have forgotten her manners." The pointed comment lands exactly where Dong-soo intended it. Minsu's cheeks flush with embarrassment and rage, but she says nothing. Margaret nods graciously, gathering her simple leather purse from the sofa. "Of course, I should probably head out anyway. I have an early shift tomorrow." She walks toward Dong-soo and rises on her tiptoes to kiss his cheek softly. "Call me later." "Always," he responds, and the tenderness in his voice makes Minsu want to scream. Margaret walks past Minsu on her way to the elevator, and as she passes, she pauses briefly. "It really was lovely to meet you, Minsu. I hope we can get to know each other better soon." There is no sarcasm in her voice, no hidden agenda, just genuine warmth and hope, and somehow that makes Minsu hate her even more. The moment the elevator doors close behind Margaret, Minsu unleashes everything she has been holding back. She storms toward her brother, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor, words pouring out of her in rapid Korean. Have you completely lost your mind? Do you have any idea what you are doing? Who is that woman? Where did she come from? How long has this been going on? If father is alive and he knows, do you think he's going to approve of it? Do the other families know? Dong-soo, answer me. Dong-soo walks calmly to the bar in the corner of the room and pours himself a glass of whiskey. He takes a slow sip before responding, and his composure only infuriates Min-soo more. Her name is Margaret Thompson. She is a pediatric nurse at Presbyterian Hospital, and she volunteers at a free clinic in the Bronx on weekends. We have been seeing each other for 4 months. Father is dead, as you well know, so his opinion is irrelevant, and the other families can mind their own business. 4 months. The words hit Min-soo like a physical blow. Her brother has been hiding this woman from her for 4 months. She, who has dedicated her entire life to protecting him, to managing his image, to ensuring the Park family remains untouchable. He has been lying to her for 4 months. A nurse, Min-soo spits the word like it tastes foul. A volunteer at some charity clinic. Dong-soo, do you understand what this looks like? Do you understand what people will say? The head of the Park family, slumming it with some random American woman who probably makes less in a year than you spend on watches. Dong-soo sets his glass down with a sharp crack. When he turns to face his sister, the warmth that had been in his eyes moments ago is completely gone. In its place is the cold, calculating expression that has made grown men tremble in boardrooms and back alleys across the country. Be very careful about your next words, Min-soo. That woman you just dismissed as random has more integrity in her smallest finger than half the people in our organization. She has dedicated her life to helping sick children. She volunteers 40 hours a month at a clinic that serves families who cannot afford regular health care. She has never asked me for a single thing. Not money, not gifts, not connections. Nothing. Min-soo laughs bitterly, and the sound is ugly in the beautiful room. Oh, please. Every woman wants something. She is playing the long game, brother. Making you think she is different, so when she finally reveals what she really wants, you will be too blinded by whatever spell she has cast to see the truth. The only spell she has cast, Dong-soo responds quietly, is making me remember what it feels like to be happy. Something I had forgotten was even possible. The words hang in the air between them. Min-soo stares at her brother, and for a moment, just a moment, she sees him. Not the powerful head of the Park family, not the cold businessman who controls an empire worth billions, just her older brother. The boy who used to sneak her extra dessert when their father was not looking. The teenager who taught her to ride a bike in the garden of their family estate. The young man who held her hand at their mother's funeral when she was too broken to stand on her own. But then the moment passes, and all Min-soo can see is danger. Weakness, vulnerability, everything their father taught them would get them killed in their world. She will destroy you, Min-soo whispers. Maybe not today, maybe not next month, but eventually she will be your undoing. I will not stand by and watch that happen. Dong-soo picks up his glass and finishes his whiskey in one long swallow. When he sets it down again, his decision has been made. Then do not watch. But know this, little sister. Margaret is not going anywhere. And if you make any move against her, if you try to interfere in any way, you and I will have a very different conversation. One you will not enjoy. He walks past her toward his private office, and just before he disappears through the door, he pauses. Have someone clean up the coffee you spilled. It will stain the marble. The door closes behind him, and Min-soo stands alone in the massive room. Surrounded by luxury and power, and everything their family has built over generations. Her hands shake at her sides. Her heart pounds with a mixture of fear and fury. She pulls out her phone and dials a number from memory. A man's voice answers on the second ring. I need you to find out everything about a woman named Margaret Thompson, pediatric nurse, works at Presbyterian Hospital, volunteers in the Bronx. I want to know every secret she has ever kept, every skeleton in her closet, every weakness that can be exploited. She pauses, her eyes fixed on the elevator doors where Margaret disappeared. I do not care how long it takes or how much it costs. By the time I am done, that woman will be nothing but a bad memory. She ends the call and takes a deep breath. Her brother thinks he is in love. He thinks he has found something real. But Min-soo knows better. She knows their world. She knows what happens to men who let their hearts overrule their heads. She will save Dong-soo from himself, whether he wants to be saved or not. This is war. Min-soo has just declared war on Margaret. But here is the question you need to think about. Is she really protecting her brother, or is there something deeper driving her hatred? What do you think is really going on here? Drop your theory in the comments right now. And if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? Please click the subscribe button and do well to like the video as well. Now, let's continue. 1 week later, Min-soo sits in the study of her private estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. The room is decorated in cold, modern elegance, all sharp lines and neutral colors, reflecting the personality of its owner. Across from her sits Gerald Hutchins, the most expensive private investigator on the East Coast. His reputation for discretion and thoroughness has made him the go-to man for the wealthy elite who need problems to disappear. He slides a thick manila folder across the polished mahogany desk. Min-soo opens it immediately, her eyes hungry for ammunition. Margaret Elizabeth Thompson, Gerald begins in his gravelly voice. 29 years old, born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. Father was a construction worker who died in a workplace accident when she was 11. Mother was a home health aide who raised Margaret and her younger brother alone. Put herself through community college while working 2 jobs. Eventually became a nursing assistant, then studied for her RN while her children were in school. Min-soo flips through the pages impatiently. Birth certificate, school records, employment history, nothing useful yet. Mother passed away 2 years ago from ovarian cancer. Margaret was at her bedside for the final 3 weeks, using up all her vacation time and sick days. The younger brother, Terrence, is 24, currently pursuing his MBA at Rutgers on a partial scholarship. Lives with Margaret in a modest apartment in Hoboken. Get to the point, Min-soo snaps. What are her secrets? What is she hiding? Gerald shifts uncomfortably in his chair. In 20 years of investigating cheating spouses, corrupt politicians, and criminal enterprises, he has rarely encountered a subject as clean as Margaret Thompson. That is the thing, Ms. Park. There is nothing. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. No debt beyond her student loans, which she has been paying down consistently for 7 years. No scandals, no affairs, no suspicious behavior. She goes to work, she volunteers at the clinic, she takes care of her brother, and she occasionally goes on dates with your brother. That is the extent of her life. Min-soo slams her palm against the desk, making Gerald flinch. Everyone has secrets. Everyone has something they want to hide. Dig deeper. Talk to her coworkers, her neighbors, her ex-boyfriends. Someone somewhere knows something that can be used. Gerald nods slowly, but there is hesitation in his eyes. Ms. Park, I have to ask, this woman seems completely legitimate. Are you certain you want to pursue this, if your brother finds out? My brother will thank me when this is over, Min-soo interrupts coldly. Just do your job. I am not paying you to question my decisions. Across the Hudson River in Hoboken, Margaret's apartment is small but filled with warmth. Every surface holds photographs or mementos from her life. Her mother's favorite armchair sits by the window, still positioned exactly where she liked it for the best afternoon light. Terrence's MBA textbooks are stacked on the kitchen counter next to a half-empty pot of coffee. The walls are painted a soft yellow that makes even the grayest days feel sunny. Margaret stands in front of her closet, trying to decide what to wear for dinner with Dong-soo. It still feels surreal that this is her life now. 4 months ago, she was just a nurse working double shifts to make ends meet. Now she is dating a man whose world is so different from hers that sometimes she feels like she is living in a dream. Terrence appears in her doorway, arms crossed over his chest. At 24, he has their mother's gentle eyes and their father's stubborn jaw. He watches his sister hold up 2 different dresses, her face scrunched in concentration. The blue one, he says, it brings out your eyes. Margaret smiles at him through the mirror. Since when do you know anything about fashion? since my big sister started dating a billionaire, and I realized I need to step up my game if I ever want to compete." The joke lands, but there is an undertone of concern in his voice that Margaret does not miss. She sets down the dresses and turns to face him fully. "What is really on your mind, Terry?" He sighs and comes into the room, sitting on the edge of her bed. "I have been hearing things, Mags, about the Park family, about what they really do behind closed doors. I know you think Dong-soo is different, but—" "He is different," Margaret interrupts gently but firmly. "I have seen sides of him that the rumors do not account for. Did you know he donated $300,000 to the clinic last month? Anonymously. He did not even tell me about it. I only found out because Mrs. Chen in administration let it slip. That does not change who his family is, what they have done." Margaret sits down next to her brother and takes his hand. "Our father worked construction for a company that cut corners on safety to save money. He died because they valued profit over human lives. Does that make everyone in construction evil? Does that mean every contractor is a murderer?" Terrence shakes his head reluctantly. "That is not the same thing, Mags." "Maybe not exactly, but Dong-soo is not his father. He is not his family's history. He is trying to be something different. I have seen him, Terry, really seen him. And the man I see is worth taking a chance on." Terrence is quiet for a long moment. Finally, he squeezes his sister's hand. "Mom always said you had the biggest heart in the family. She also said that big hearts break the easiest. Just be careful, okay? I cannot lose you too." Margaret pulls him into a hug. "You are never going to lose me, I promise." Later that evening, Dong-soo picks Margaret up in a sleek black car that probably costs more than her annual salary. But what she notices is not the car. It is the way his face lights up when he sees her walking toward him. It is the way he opens her door himself instead of letting the driver do it. It is the small bouquet of sunflowers he hands her, remembering that she mentioned they were her mother's favorite weeks ago. "You look beautiful," he says as she settles into the seat next to him. "You always say that." "Because it is always true." They drive into Manhattan for dinner at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village. It is not the kind of place Min-soo would expect her brother to frequent. No VIP rooms or exclusive reservations. Just good food, warm atmosphere, and tables close enough together that you can hear other couples laughing and arguing and living their lives. Margaret watches Dong-soo as he studies the menu with genuine interest, asking the waiter about the specials and whether the pasta is made fresh daily. This is not the fearsome figure that the world sees. This is just a man enjoying a simple evening with someone he cares about. "I met your sister," Margaret says once they have ordered. "Last week at your place." Dong-soo's expression tightens almost imperceptibly. "I know, I am sorry about how she behaved. Min-soo can be protective." Protective is one word for it. He reaches across the table and takes her hand. His palm is warm, slightly calloused in ways that surprise her. For all his wealth, he is not a man who avoids physical work when it is needed. "My sister and I have been through a lot together. Our father was not an easy man. After our mother died, Min-soo took on the role of protector. She thinks she needs to save me from everything, including myself. She does not trust easily. She does not trust me at all. She does not know you yet. Give her time." Margaret studies his face, reading the hope there. He wants his sister to accept her. He wants his two worlds to merge peacefully. But Margaret has seen the look in Min-soo's eyes. That was not suspicion. That was hatred. Still, she smiles and squeezes his hand. "I can be patient." Across town, Min-soo is anything but patient. She paces her hotel's suite at the Mandarin Oriental, phone pressed to her ear, fury building with every word Gerald Hutchins speaks. "I talked to everyone I could find. Co-workers, neighbors, former classmates. They all say the same thing. Margaret Thompson is one of the kindest people they have ever met. She stayed late with a dying patient last year because the family could not make it in time, held the woman's hand for 6 hours until she passed. She tutors underprivileged kids in her building on Saturday mornings. She organized a fundraiser for a colleague whose husband was diagnosed with cancer." "This is useless," Min-soo hisses. There is one thing, Gerald says carefully. It is not exactly a secret, but it is a vulnerability. Her brother, Terrence, he is everything to her. She co-signed his student loans, helped him get into Rutgers, pays half his rent so he can focus on studying instead of working full-time. If something were to happen to him academically or financially. Min-soo stops packing. Go on. Well, his scholarship comes up for review every semester, and scholarship committees can be influenced. I also found out that Margaret's apartment building was recently purchased by a new owner. The tenants have not been notified yet, but major rent increases or even evictions could be coming. For the first time all evening, Min-soo smiles. Now we are getting somewhere. The next few weeks pass in a blur of small moments and growing tension. Dong-soo and Margaret fall deeper into their relationship, stealing time together whenever their busy schedules allow. He surprises her at the clinic with lunch. She shows up at his office with coffee just because she was thinking of him. They talk for hours about everything and nothing, learning each other's histories and dreams and fears. But beneath the surface, the pressure is building. At a quarterly meeting of the allied families held at the Lee family compound in Beverly Hills, Min-soo plants the first seeds of doubt. She speaks casually to Mrs. Lee, the matriarch whose word carries enormous weight among all the families. Dong-soo has seemed distracted lately, Min-soo says, sipping her tea with calculated nonchalance. There is a woman, an outsider. Mrs. Lee's perfectly penciled eyebrows rise slightly. What kind of outsider? American, a nurse of some sort. My brother seems quite taken with her. The older woman's expression hardens. In their world, marriages are strategic alliances. Relationships are tools for building power and securing legacies. Love, especially love for someone outside the established families, is a dangerous liability. Your brother should know better, Mrs. Lee says quietly. His father would never have allowed such a distraction. My father is dead, Min-soo responds, and there is something bitter in her voice. And my brother does not listen to me as he once did. By the end of the evening, every family representative at the gathering knows about the Black American woman who has captured Dong-soo Park's attention. And by the end of the week, Dong-soo is summoned to a video conference with the heads of all 5 allied families. They do not waste time with pleasantries. You have responsibilities, the eldest Lee says through the screen, his weathered face stern. To your family, to our alliance, this relationship threatens everything we have built together. My personal life is not subject to committee approval, Dong-soo responds, his voice cold. Everything about your life is our concern when you lead one of the 5 families, the Kim patriarch interjects. Your father understood that. We had hoped you would as well. My father was a tyrant who died alone and unloved, Dong-soo says flatly. Forgive me if I choose a different path. The screens erupt in protests and objections. Dong-soo listens with growing fury as men he has known his entire life lecture him about duty and tradition and proper behavior. When the eldest Lee finally issues an ultimatum, 30 days to end the relationship or face consequences, something inside Dong-soo snaps. Do not threaten me, he says quietly, and the room goes silent. Any of you. My father built an empire that put you all in the positions you hold today. You exist because the Parks allowed you to exist. Remember that before you make demands of me. He ends the call with a single click, then sits in the silence of his empty office, his hands trembling with rage. Jin-ho, his most trusted advisor and right-hand man, steps into the room hesitantly. Sir, that was perhaps not the wisest approach. I do not care about being wise. I care about Margaret. Jin-ho nods slowly. Then you should know something. The allied families did not organize this intervention on their own. Someone has been feeding them information, encouraging their concerns, stoking their fears. Dong-soo already knows the answer, but he asks anyway. Who? Jin-ho hesitates. Your sister, sir. Min-soo has been in contact with Mrs. Lee for weeks. Dong-soo closes his eyes. His own blood, his only family, working against him. Keep watching her, he orders quietly. I want to know every move she makes, everyone she talks to, everything she is planning. And if she threatens Ms. Thompson directly? Dong-soo opens his eyes, and what Jin-ho sees there makes him take an involuntary step backward. Then Min-soo will discover exactly how far I am willing to go to protect the woman I love. Margaret feels it before she understands it, the subtle shifts that signal something has changed. At first, she thinks she is imagining things. The uneasy glances from colleagues who usually greet her warmly. The health inspector who shows up unannounced at the clinic, finding violations that have never been mentioned in previous inspections. The letter from her landlord announcing that the building has new owners and all tenants must vacate within 60 days. Then Terrence calls her, his voice shaking with confusion and fear. They're auditing my scholarship, MAGs. Something about irregularities in my application from 3 years ago. If they find anything wrong, I could lose my funding. I could lose everything. Margaret sits down heavily on her couch, her mind racing. One thing could be coincidence. 2 things could be bad luck. But 3 things happening simultaneously to the 2 most important aspects of her life. That is not a coincidence. That is a coordinated attack. She tries to call Dong-soo, but his phone goes to voicemail. She calls again an hour later. Same result. By the 3rd attempt, she stops trying. Maybe he is in meetings. Maybe he is busy with family business. Or maybe he is finally seeing what his sister wanted him to see all along. That night, Margaret cannot sleep. She lies in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every moment of the past few months, looking for signs she might have missed. Was she naive to think this could work? Was she foolish to believe that love could bridge the enormous gap between their worlds? Her phone buzzes just after midnight. A text from an unknown number. This is only the beginning. Walk away now while you still can. Margaret reads the message 3 times. Then she does something that surprises even herself. She laughs. A tired, bitter laugh that fills her small bedroom and bounces off the walls. Walk away. As if she is some fragile flower who wilts at the first sign of adversity. Whoever sent this message clearly does not know who they are dealing with. Margaret Thompson was 11 years old when she watched her father's body being lowered into the ground. She was 15 when she started working nights at a grocery store to help her mother pay the bills. She was 18 when she held her crying mother's hand at the bankruptcy hearing that took their family home. She was 27 when she spent 3 weeks sleeping on a hospital cot, watching cancer slowly consume the strongest woman she had ever known. She has been through hell and come out the other side, again and again and again. Some rich princess in designer clothes is not going to break her. The next morning, Margaret marches into Presbyterian Hospital with fire in her eyes. She does not wait to be summoned. She walks straight to the HR department and demands to see the accusations against the clinic. The supervisor, a nervous woman named Patricia, hesitates at first, but something in Margaret's expression makes it clear that refusal is not an option. The documents are damning. Alleged prescription drug theft totaling $15,000 over 6 months. Patient records accessed without authorization. Controlled substances signed out under Margaret's name and never accounted for. Margaret reads every page slowly and carefully. Then she sets the folder down and looks Patricia directly in the eyes. "This is fake," she says calmly. "Every single page of this is fabricated. The dates they claim I accessed these records. I was on vacation for 3 of them, in Florida visiting my aunt. I have plane tickets, hotel receipts, and about 40 photos on my phone to prove it." Patricia shifts uncomfortably. "These are serious allegations, Ms. Thompson. We have to investigate." "Then investigate. Go ahead. Check the security footage from the pharmacy. Cross-reference the access logs with my actual schedule. Talk to my colleagues who worked alongside me every single day. The truth will come out. It always does." She stands to leave, then pauses at the door. "And when you discover that someone has manufactured this entire case to destroy my career, I expect a full apology and an investigation into who is responsible. Because someone is spending a lot of money and effort trying to ruin my life, and I intend to find out who." While Margaret fights for her reputation, Dong-soo is trapped in a different kind of battle. Jin-ho has spent the past 3 days gathering intelligence, And what he presents to Dong-soo in the privacy of his office makes everything suddenly, terrifyingly clear. The evidence against Ms. Thompson was created by a forger named Edward Crane, cousin to Victor Crane. Dong-soo's blood goes cold at the name. Victor Crane, real estate developer, criminal mastermind, and the man whose father Dong-soo's father destroyed 30 years ago in a brutal power struggle that left the Crane family broken and desperate for revenge. Why would the Cranes get involved in this? Because someone invited them in. Jinho slides a photograph across the desk. It shows Min-soo sitting across from Victor Crane in what appears to be a private dining room. The date stamp is 3 weeks ago. For a long moment, Dong-soo cannot speak, cannot move, cannot process what he is seeing. His sister, his blood, his only remaining family, has allied herself with his greatest enemy, not just to separate him from Margaret, but to destroy the entire Park Empire from within. Does she know who Crane is? Dong-soo asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Does she understand what she has done? I do not believe she knows the full history. She approached him looking for resources to use against Ms. Thompson. Crane saw an opportunity and took it. Dong-soo stands and walks to the window overlooking Central Park. The city sprawls beneath him, millions of lives unfolding in patterns he will never see or understand. Somewhere out there, Margaret is fighting for her future. Somewhere out there, his sister is plotting with their oldest enemy. And here he stands, caught between the two women who matter most to him, unable to protect either one from the other. What are my options? Jinho considers carefully before responding. If you expose Min-soo's alliance with Crane to the other families, she will be finished. Exile, disgrace, possibly worse, but you will have destroyed any chance of reconciliation with your only sister. And if I do not? Then Crane will continue to use her. The attacks on Ms. Thompson will escalate, and eventually, Crane will have enough inside information to bring down the entire park operation. Dong-soo closes his eyes. There is no good choice here. There is only survival and sacrifice, the two constants of his entire life. Arrange a meeting with my sister. Tomorrow, at our mother's grave. She cannot refuse that. And Ms. Thompson. I will go to her tonight. She deserves to know what is happening. She deserves to choose whether she still wants any part of this. But Margaret chooses first. When Dong-soo arrives at her apartment that evening, she is sitting on her couch surrounded by documents and evidence. Her eyes are red from exhaustion but clear with determination. She does not wait for him to explain. I know someone is targeting me. The clinic, my apartment, Terrence's scholarship. It is all connected. Your sister. Dong-soo sits down beside her and takes her hands. Yes, but it is worse than that. She has partnered with a man named Victor Crane, my family's oldest enemy. He is using her to get to me. Margaret processes this information with surprising calm. So we are pawns in someone else's game. Not pawns, targets. Is there a difference? Dong-soo almost smiles despite the gravity of the situation. Pawns cannot fight back. We can. Margaret squeezes his hands. I am not going anywhere. I told your sister that the day I met her and I meant it. But I need to know something first, if this gets worse. If choosing me means losing your sister forever. Can you live with that? The question hangs between them like a blade. Dong-soo has asked himself the same thing every night for weeks, and every time he arrives at the same answer. When I was young, my mother told me that the heart knows things the mind cannot understand. That love is the only thing in this world worth risking everything for. I did not believe her. I thought she was weak, romantic, naive. But she was right. I know that now. Because when I imagine a future without you, it is empty, meaningless. But when I imagine a future without Min-soo, it is painful but survivable. That tells me everything I need to know. Margaret pulls him close and holds him tightly. For a long moment, they simply breathe together, drawing strength from each other's presence. Then we fight together, she says finally. Whatever comes. The cemetery in Westchester is peaceful in a way that the rest of the world never is. Rolling green hills dotted with white headstones stretch toward the horizon, and ancient oak trees provide shade from the late afternoon sun. Dong-soo stands before his mother's grave, reading the familiar words on the marble marker for what must be the 1,000th time. Park Soo-yeon, beloved wife and mother, her love was endless, her grace was boundless, her spirit lives on. He hears Min-soo's footsteps approaching before he sees her. She walks slowly, almost hesitantly, clutching a small bouquet of white lilies, their mother's favorite flowers. When she reaches the grave, she places them carefully at the base of the headstone and bows her head in silent prayer. For a moment, they stand together in silence. Brother and sister, the last of their bloodline, united by loss and divided by choices. "Do you remember what she used to say when we fought?" Dong-soo asks quietly. "When we were children." Min-soo's voice is thick with emotion. "She said that siblings are the only people in the world who know your full story, from the very beginning. She also said that we would need each other someday, that when the world was cruel and the path was dark, we would be each other's light." Min-soo wipes her eyes impatiently. She was a dreamer. She did not understand our world. She understood more than we gave her credit for. Dong-soo finally turns to face his sister. "I know about Victor Crane, Min-soo. I know everything." The color drains from Min-soo's face. For a moment, she looks like the frightened little girl who used to climb into Dong-soo's bed during thunderstorms, seeking comfort from her big brother. But then the mask slides back into place, and she straightens her spine. "I did what I had to do. You left me no choice." "No choice. You partnered with the man whose family has been trying to destroy ours for 3 decades. You fed him information about our operations. You put everything we have built at risk. And for what? Because you cannot stand to see me happy." "I was trying to save you." Min-soo's voice cracks, and suddenly all the walls she has built come tumbling down. "Can't you see that? Father was a monster. He destroyed everything he touched. Mother, our family, his own soul. And when he died, he left you in charge of an empire built on blood and cruelty. I watched you become him, Dong-soo. Year after year, I watched you grow colder, harder, emptier, until I almost did not recognize my own brother." The words hit Dong-soo like physical blows. He opens his mouth to protest, but Min-soo is not finished. "Then Margaret came along, and suddenly you were different, smiling, laughing, talking about the future like it was something to look forward to instead of endure. At first, I thought it was wonderful. My brother was coming back to life, but then I realized what it really meant." "What?" "That you were becoming vulnerable, soft, emotional. All the things that get men in our world killed." Min-soo's tears flow freely now, cutting tracks through her perfect makeup. "I have seen it happen, Dong-soo. The Yoon family, the Kwon family. Strong men brought down by love, by trust, by letting the wrong person into their hearts. I could not let that happen to you. I would rather have you hate me than watch you die." Dong-soo stares at his sister, and for the first time, he truly sees her. Not the cold, calculating woman who has been sabotaging his relationship, but the terrified girl who watched their father beat their mother, who saw what power and love mixed together could do to a family, who has spent her entire life trying to protect Dong-soo from a fate she believes is inevitable. "Oh, Min-soo," he says softly, "you are so afraid of losing me that you almost destroyed me." "I know," the admission comes out as barely a whisper. "I know now that I was wrong, about Margaret, about everything, but I did not know how to stop, and Crane kept promising that it would work, that Margaret would leave and things would go back to normal and you would understand someday. I was so stupid." Dong-soo takes a step toward his sister, then another. When he reaches her, he pulls her into an embrace that carries the weight of their entire shared history. She collapses against him, sobbing like the child she never really got to be. "You have to fix this," he says into her hair. "The evidence against Margaret, the attacks on her brother, all of it. You have to undo what you have done." Min-soo nods against his chest. "I will. I swear on Mother's grave, I will make this right." "And Crane." Min-soo pulls back slightly, wiping her face with shaking hands. "He has everything he wanted from me already. Information about our suppliers, our security protocols, our offshore accounts. I did not realize what he was doing until it was too late. He played me, Dong-soo. I thought I was using him, but he was using me all along." The magnitude of the situation settles over Dong-soo like a physical weight. Victor Crane now has enough information to cripple the Park Empire. The attacks on Margaret were never the real goal. They were just a distraction while Crane gathered intelligence for a much larger assault. Then we need to move fast, Dong-soo says, before Crane can use what you gave him. What can I do? How can I help? Dong-soo looks at his sister with a mixture of love and disappointment that will take years to fully resolve. Start by going to Margaret. Tell her the truth, all of it, and apologize. Min-soo's face twists with reluctance, but she nods. I will, I promise. And Min-soo, if you ever go behind my back again, if you ever betray my trust again, not even Mother's memory will protect you from the consequences. Do you understand? Min-soo meets his eyes steadily. I understand. They stand together before their mother's grave for a few more moments, two broken people trying to find their way back to each other. The path ahead is unclear, filled with enemies and obstacles and wounds that may never fully heal. But for the first time in months, there is a glimmer of hope. They are family, and family fights together. The counterattack begins immediately. Jinho coordinates with Dong-soo to identify every piece of information Min-soo shared with Victor Crane. Passwords are changed. Suppliers are moved. Security protocols are overhauled. It is expensive and disruptive, but necessary to minimize the damage Crane can do. Meanwhile, Margaret faces her accusers at the hospital. The investigation has turned up exactly what she predicted. The evidence against her is fabricated. Security footage shows her nowhere near the pharmacy during the alleged thefts. Access logs were altered by an outside source. Witness statements contradict each other in ways that suggest coordination rather than truth. The hospital issues a formal apology and reinstates Margaret with full back pay. The HR supervisor, Patricia, personally escorts her back to her unit, expressing embarrassment and outrage that such a thing could have happened. But Margaret is not satisfied. I want to know who did this, she tells Patricia. Someone tried to destroy my career and my reputation. They should face consequences. I agree completely. Legal is already looking into it. Whoever is responsible will be held accountable. Margaret nods, but she already knows who is responsible. The question is not who, but what happens next. The meeting between Min-soo and Margaret takes place in neutral territory. A small coffee shop in Jersey City, far from the glittering towers of Manhattan where both women usually operate. Min-soo arrives first, dressed simply by her standards, no designer labels visible. She orders a black coffee and waits. When Margaret walks in, Min-soo sees her differently than before. Not as an intruder or a gold digger or a threat, but as a woman who has faced everything Min-soo could throw at her and refused to break. There is something almost admirable about that kind of strength. Margaret sits down across from Min-soo and says nothing. The silence stretches between them, heavy with history and harm. Finally, Min-soo speaks. I do not expect you to forgive me. I am not sure I would forgive me if our positions were reversed. But I owe you the truth, and I owe you an apology, so here it is. She tells Margaret everything. The private investigator, the alliance with Victor Crane, the fabricated evidence, the attacks on Terrence's scholarship and the apartment building. She does not make excuses or minimize her actions. She simply presents the facts as ugly as they are. When she finishes, Margaret is quiet for a long moment. Then she asks a question Min-soo was not expecting. Why do you really hate me? Min-soo blinks. What? Not the surface reasons. Not the outsider thing or the tradition thing or the protecting your brother thing. The real reason. The one you maybe have not even admitted to yourself. The question cuts deeper than any accusation could. Min-soo opens her mouth to deflect, to change the subject, to retreat into anger. But something in Margaret's calm, steady gaze makes that impossible. I was jealous, Min-soo admits, and the words taste like ash in her mouth. Dong-soo and I used to be everything to each other. After our mother died, we were all each other had. He relied on me, needed me. And then you came along, and suddenly I was not the most important woman in his life anymore. Suddenly there was someone who could make him smile in ways I never could. Someone he trusted more than he trusted me. Margaret considers this. That must have been incredibly painful. It is, Minsu's voice cracks. I have spent my whole life trying to be enough for him, trying to protect him from everything and everyone, and it was never enough. He still pulled away. He still shut me out. And when I saw how open he was with you, how freely he gave you the things he always kept from me. You felt betrayed. Yes. Margaret reaches across the table and does something Minsu absolutely did not expect. She takes Minsu's hand. I am not trying to replace you, Margaret says gently. I could never replace you. You are his sister. You share a history that I will never fully understand. What I am trying to do is add to his life, not take away from it. There is room for both of us to love him. Minsu stares at their joined hands, overwhelmed by a kindness she absolutely does not deserve. How can you say that after everything I have done to you? Because holding on to anger is exhausting. Because Dong-su loves you, and I love Dong-su, which means I have to at least try to understand you. And because my mother raised me to believe that people can change. That redemption is always possible for those who truly want it. Minsu's tears fall again, and this time she does not try to stop them. I want to change, I want to fix this, but I do not know if it is too late. Margaret squeezes her hand. It is never too late, but fixing this means more than just apologizing to me. Victor Crane is using the information you gave him. He is planning something, and if we are going to stop him, we need to work together. Together. You, me, Dong-su. Whatever comes next, we face it as a family. Margaret pauses, letting the words sink in. Because that is what you are to me now, Minsu. Whether you like it or not, you are going to be my family. Minsu cannot speak. She cannot do anything except nod and cry and hold onto Margaret's hand like it is a lifeline. For the first time in longer than she can remember, she does not feel alone. The intelligence on Victor Crane paints a terrifying picture. He has spent the past decade building an empire of corruption and crime, hidden behind a facade of legitimate business, money laundering through shell companies, bribery of federal officials, extortion of rival developers, human trafficking through construction sites. The list goes on and on. And now he has information that could expose the Park family's own illegal operations, carefully concealed for generations behind layers of corporate structure and plausible deniability. If Crane goes public with what Minsu gave him, it will not just destroy the parks. It will trigger investigations that could bring down all 5 allied families. Dong-su calls an emergency meeting, not with the allied families yet, first with his inner circle. Jin-ho, his head of security, a quiet man named Thomas Chen. His personal attorney, a woman named Victoria Reynolds who has been with the family for 20 years. And to everyone's surprise, Minsu and Margaret. They gather in the war room of the Park family headquarters, a secure facility designed to resist surveillance of any kind. Dong-su stands at the head of the table, his face grim but determined. Victor Crane has enough information to destroy us. We have 3 options. First, we pay him off. Give him whatever he wants in exchange for his silence. That will not work, Victoria says immediately. Blackmailers never stop at one payment, and Crane does not want money, he wants revenge. Second option, we go to the authorities ourselves, turn over evidence of Crane's crimes, and hope that the investigation focuses on him rather than us. Thomas shakes his head. Too risky. There is no way to control what an investigation might uncover. Which leaves option 3. Dong-su's voice hardens. We destroy Victor Crane completely, his business empire, his reputation, his allies. We take away everything he has until he is no threat to anyone. The room is silent. Finally, Margaret speaks. How do we do that without becoming the very thing we are fighting against? Dong-su meets her eyes. We use his own weapons against him. Crane built his empire on secrets and lies. We expose them, not through violence, through truth. Jin-ho nods slowly. We have been gathering intelligence on Crane for years, waiting for the right moment. We have evidence of his money laundering schemes, his connections to corrupt officials, his involvement in covering up workplace deaths at his construction sites. And I have access to his inner circle, Minsu adds quietly. He still thinks I am on his side. I can get more. Victoria leans forward. If we can get this evidence to the right people, federal prosecutors, investigative journalists, rival families who have been hurt by Crane, we could bring him down without ever exposing ourselves. It is risky, Thomas warns. If Crane realizes what we are doing before we are ready. Then we move fast, Dongsu says. We have 1 week. 1 week to gather everything we need and coordinate our attack. By the time Crane realizes what is happening, it will be too late. Margaret looks around the room at the faces of people she barely knew a month ago. A billionaire crime boss, his right-hand man, a security chief who could probably kill her without leaving a trace, an attorney who has witnessed things that would give her nightmares for years. And she is sitting among them, planning the takedown of a monster, like this is the most natural thing in the world. Her mother would be horrified, or maybe she would be proud. It is hard to say. The week that follows is the most intense of Margaret's life. She continues working at the hospital, maintaining the appearance of normalcy, while every spare moment is consumed by the operation against Crane. She coordinates with Terrence, whose scholarship audit mysteriously evaporates once Minsu makes a few calls. She works with Victoria to prepare legal documentation that protects her and her brother from any fallout. Minsu, meanwhile, plays the most dangerous role. She maintains contact with Crane, pretending to still be his ally, feeding him false information while extracting every secret she can. It is terrifying work. One wrong word, one suspicious glance, and Crane will know he has been betrayed. But Minsu is not the same woman she was a month ago. The fear that used to paralyze her has been replaced by something stronger, the determination to prove herself worthy of the second chance she has been given. On the 5th day, she hits the jackpot. A private dinner with Crane at his estate in the Hamptons, where he drinks too much wine and speaks too freely about his plans. She records everything on a device Jinho provided, hidden in her designer clutch. The recording captures Crane admitting to bribing 3 federal judges, ordering the destruction of evidence in a wrongful death lawsuit, and planning to use the Park family secrets to extort them for $100 million over the next decade. When Minsu delivers the recording to Dongsu, her hands are still shaking, but her eyes are clear and proud. This is enough, Jinho confirms after reviewing the evidence. This is more than enough. Victor Crane is arrested on a Tuesday morning, in front of the federal courthouse in Manhattan, where he was scheduled to appear for a routine hearing on one of his many pending lawsuits. The cameras capture everything. The shock on his face, the federal marshals placing him in handcuffs, the crowd of reporters shouting questions he cannot answer. The charges are devastating. 17 counts of money laundering, 12 counts of bribery, 6 counts of obstruction of justice, 3 counts of conspiracy to commit fraud, and buried in the middle of the indictment, almost as an afterthought, 4 counts of extortion related to his attempted blackmail of the Park family. The news cycles erupt. Crane's face is everywhere, paired with headlines about his decades of corruption and crime. His business empire begins to crumble within hours. Partners distance themselves. Investors flee. Properties are seized. By the end of the week, the man who once thought he was untouchable is facing the very real possibility of spending the rest of his life in federal prison. But Crane is not going quietly. From jail, he manages to get a message to a reporter at a major newspaper. He wants to make a deal. He has information about the Park family, he claims. Enough to bring down one of the most powerful criminal organizations on the East Coast. In exchange for leniency, he will tell them everything. The reporter contacts Dongsu's attorney for comment. Victoria handles the call with practiced calm. Mr. Crane is facing serious charges and is clearly desperate to avoid consequences. Any allegations he makes should be viewed in that context. The Park family is a legitimate business enterprise with nothing to hide. But behind closed doors, the tension is thick enough to choke on. He is bluffing, Jinho insists. The information Minsu gave him is outdated, We have already changed everything. He might have kept records we do not know about, Thomas counters. We cannot assume we are safe. Dong-soo silences them both with a look. We wait. Crane has to prove what he claims, and he cannot prove what does not exist anymore. Let him dig his own grave. Margaret watches the drama unfold from the periphery, trying to reconcile the world she has entered with the values she was raised on. She knows what the Park family is. She knows the things they have done, the laws they have broken, the people they have hurt. And yet she also knows Dong-soo, the man who reads to sick children, the man who cries at sad movies, the man who has risked everything for her. Can both things be true? Can a person be a criminal and still be good? She does not have answers, only questions, and the uncomfortable certainty that her life will never be simple again. The prosecutors decline Crane's offer. Without corroborating evidence, his allegations are worthless. And the evidence he thought he had, the secrets Min-soo shared, lead nowhere. Changed passwords, moved accounts, different suppliers. It is as if the information was deliberately designed to be useless by the time he tried to use it. Which, of course, it was. Crane's trial lasts 3 weeks. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Witness after witness testifies to his crimes. Documents and recordings pile up until the jury has no choice but to convict. When the verdict comes, Dong-soo is in his office, watching the live coverage with Jin-ho, guilty on all counts. The judge schedules sentencing for the following month, but everyone knows what is coming. Victor Crane will die in prison. It is over, Jin-ho says quietly. Dong-soo shakes his head. It is never over. There will always be another Crane. Another enemy, another threat, but today we won, and that is enough. 6 months after Victor Crane's conviction, Margaret stands in the doorway of the newly renovated Bronx Community Health Center, watching the ribbon-cutting ceremony with tears in her eyes. The building that was once crumbling and underfunded is now a state-of-the-art facility, equipped with the latest technology and staffed by some of the best medical professionals in the city. The $10 million donation from the Park Family Foundation made it possible. But Margaret insisted on being involved in every decision, from the layout of the patient rooms to the selection of the artwork on the walls. This is her legacy, not just Dong-soo's money. Terrence stands beside her, beaming with pride. He graduated from Rutgers last month, top of his class, and has accepted a position at a consulting firm in Boston. But before he leaves, he wants to see what his sister has built. Mom would be so proud of you, he says, slipping his arm around her shoulders. She would be proud of both of us. Margaret leans into her brother's embrace. We made it, Terry. We actually made it. The relationship between Margaret and Min-soo has transformed into something neither woman expected, genuine friendship. It did not happen overnight. There were months of awkward conversations, painful honesty, and tentative trust-building. But slowly, steadily, they found common ground. They both loved Dong-soo, though in different ways. They both lost their mothers too young. They both know what it means to fight for survival in a world that does not care about their struggles. Now, Min-soo is a regular presence at family dinners. She and Margaret go shopping together, arguing about fashion choices and gossiping about celebrities. It is strange and wonderful and nothing Min-soo ever imagined for herself. One evening, as they are preparing dinner in Margaret's kitchen, Min-soo pauses and looks at the woman who has become her unexpected sister. I never apologized to you properly, she says, for the things I called you in my head, for the assumptions I made about who you were. Margaret shrugs, chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. You did apologize, multiple times. Not for everything, I thought. Min-soo hesitates, shame coloring her cheeks. I thought you were beneath us, beneath him, because of where you came from, who your family was, the color of your skin. Margaret sets down the knife and faces Min-soo directly. I know. You knew. Of course I knew. I have dealt with people like that my whole life. I knew what you were thinking the moment I saw your face that first day, but I also knew something you did not know. What? That I was exactly what your brother needed, and that eventually you would see it too. Minsu's eyes fill with tears. How are you so sure? Margaret smiles and picks up the knife again. Because my mother taught me that the truth is like a lion. You do not have to defend it. Just let it loose, and it will defend itself. The proposal happens on a rooftop in Manhattan, the city sparkling beneath them like a million scattered diamonds. Dong-soo has planned everything perfectly. Margaret's favorite flowers, her favorite music playing softly from hidden speakers, a bottle of champagne chilling in an ice bucket. But when the moment comes, he forgets all his carefully prepared words. He stands before the woman who has changed his life and finds himself speechless. Margaret laughs at his expression. Are you okay? I had this whole speech planned, he admits. About what you mean to me, how you saved me, how you made me believe in things I had given up on. But now that you are standing here, looking at me like that, all I can think is how much I want to spend the rest of my life with you. He drops to one knee and opens a small velvet box. The ring inside is not the biggest diamond Margaret has ever seen, though it is certainly beautiful. What makes it special is the small sapphire beside the diamond, the exact color of the scrubs Margaret wears to work. Margaret Thompson, will you marry me? Margaret looks at the ring, then at the man kneeling before her. She thinks about her mother, who always believed she would find her prince. She thinks about her father, who taught her that love is the greatest gift you can give another person. She thinks about all the trials she has survived to reach this moment. Yes, she says, and she has never meant anything more in her entire life. Dong-soo slides the ring onto her finger, then rises to kiss her as the city lights sparkle around them. The wedding takes place at a private vineyard in Napa Valley, California, 1 year after the proposal. The rolling hills are painted gold and green by the summer sun, and the air smells of grapes and roses and happiness. Only 100 guests are invited, a small number by Park family standards, but exactly right for Margaret and Dong-soo. Every person present represents a piece of their journey. Colleagues from the hospital who supported Margaret through her darkest days. Business partners who have come to respect Dong-soo's new approach to leadership. Friends and family members who never gave up on either of them. Terrence walks Margaret down the aisle, handsome in his tailored suit, fighting back tears he swore he would not shed. When they reach the altar, he kisses his sister's cheek and whispers the words their mother would have said. Be happy, Mags. You deserve this. Margaret squeezes his hand, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Dong-soo waits for her at the end of the aisle, and for the first time in his life, he feels no need to control his emotions. Tears stream down his face as he watches the woman he loves walk toward him, beautiful in a simple white gown that flows around her like water. The ceremony is brief but meaningful. They exchange traditional Korean vows alongside Western ones, blending their cultures as they are blending their lives. When the officiant pronounces them husband and wife, the crowd erupts in applause and cheers. At the reception, Min-soo rises to give a toast. The room falls silent, many guests remembering the rumors about her opposition to the relationship. Some have not fully forgiven her. Others are simply curious what she will say. Min-soo takes a deep breath and begins. 2 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I looked at Margaret and saw a threat, an outsider, someone who did not belong in our world. I could not see past my own fear and jealousy to recognize what my brother saw from the very beginning. She pauses, gathering herself. Margaret is the best thing that ever happened to our family, not because she is perfect, because she is real. She challenged us to be better. She forgave when she had every right to hate. She showed us that love is not a weakness to be guarded against, but a strength that can transform everything it touches. Min-soo raises her glass. To Margaret and Dong-soo, may your love continue to transform everyone fortunate enough to witness it. And may you always remember that you have a sister who loves you both and will spend the rest of her life trying to deserve the second chance you gave her. The room raises their glasses in unison. Margaret wipes tears from her cheeks. Dong-soo puts his arm around his new wife and mouths, "Thank you," to his sister across the room. Min-soo smiles back, and for the first time in years, it reaches her eyes. 3 years later, Margaret and Dong-soo stand in the living room of their home in Palo Alto, watching twin girls toddle across the carpet toward a pile of brightly colored toys. Grace, named for Margaret's mother, has her father's dark eyes and serious expression. Soo-yeon, named for Dong-soo's mother, has Margaret's smile and boundless energy. They are the perfect blend of their parents, proof that two people from completely different worlds can create something beautiful together. Min-soo visits often, spoiling her nieces with gifts and attention. She has changed in ways that even she does not fully understand. The fear and jealousy that once consumed her have been replaced by a peace she never knew was possible. She is learning, slowly, to let love in instead of pushing it away. On this particular Sunday afternoon, the house is full of warmth and laughter. Terrence has flown in from Boston for the weekend. Jinho stops by with his wife and their new baby. Even Victoria Reynolds, the family attorney, joins them for dinner, trading legal strategies for stories about her grandchildren. Later that evening, after the guests have left and the twins are asleep in their cribs, Margaret and Dong-soo sit on their back porch, watching the sun set over the California hills. "Did you ever imagine this?" Margaret asks, leaning her head on her husband's shoulder. "This, a home, a family, two perfect daughters." Dong-soo kisses the top of her head. "I imagined power, money, control, all the things my father taught me to value, but this is better than anything I ever dreamed." "Your mother would be proud. She would love you. She would have loved you from the first moment she saw you stand up to me at that clinic, refusing to let me bully my way past you." Margaret laughs at the memory. It seems like a lifetime ago now, that first meeting. Two strangers from different worlds, circling each other with suspicion and attraction, and something that would eventually become love. "I was so scared that day," she admits. "I thought you were going to have me fired or worse. And instead I came back the next day, like a lovesick fool." "You were not lovesick, you were intrigued." "Intrigued, lovesick, what is the difference? The result was the same. I could not stop thinking about you, could not stop wanting to see you again, could not stop imagining what it would be like to hear you laugh, to see you smile, to touch your hand." Margaret turns to face her husband, studying the face she has come to know better than her own. The lines around his eyes from smiling, the gray at his temples from stress and time, the softness in his expression that only appears when he is with her or their daughters. "I love you," she says simply. "I love you too, today, tomorrow, forever." The story of Dong-soo Park and Margaret Thompson becomes legend in both their worlds. In Korean social circles, it is whispered about as a cautionary tale or a romantic fairy tale, depending on who is telling it. In Margaret's community, it is held up as proof that love can conquer any obstacle, any prejudice, any barrier. But for Margaret and Dong-soo, it is simply their life, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time, filled with challenges and triumphs, arguments and reconciliations, moments of doubt and moments of perfect certainty. The Korean mafia boss found his queen in the most unexpected place. And the black woman his sister once hated became the heart of the family. Not because she changed who she was to fit their world, but because she stayed true to herself and dared them to change instead. And in the end, they did.